Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L. Let me move my my mic. Here to do My Hero Academia chapter 353. I'm recording this on a Tuesday. Hopefully it gets onto the channel on a Tuesday, but maybe it'll be on Wednesday. Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. This chapter of Hero Academia, I gotta say, I really do like it, but I think I've realized I really like setup chapters, and I really like setup chapters when they promise something for the future before, you're inevitably disappointed. So that's why I think I'm really just having a great time with the chapters, because it's so much potential, and it hasn't been squandered just yet. But given the nature of things, chances are a lot of this goodwill will evaporate in a few weeks. We'll have to see. Anyway, this chapter, super setup. I think in terms of when we were looking at the spoilers, I really thought this chapter felt like a little bit of a course correction, just because some things here, weren't really built up. There's really only one thing that wasn't built up, which was Kirishima and Mina. So when I saw it here, that was a real nice kind of reassurance, and I really enjoyed seeing it. It really does give me hope that we're going to see other things. Oh, also Sero's little moment there. It gives me hope that this is going to be much longer than we thought. When I look at this chapter and I see the characters that are being involved here, I don't think Hero Academia ends this year. I think it will slip into 2023. It's just because naturally when it comes to stories, the more characters you have involved in something, the more it expands and elongates. So that's why Horikoshi must be smoking something if he actually thinks he's going to get to 2022 with Hero Academia done. That said, there is a way of doing it, and that's by botching the whole thing. But right now, with what he did here, establishing that there were actually two other things that were worth looking at, not just the stuff that Dobby pointed out, I felt was really solid. And so I'm super excited. I can't wait to see what message he's going to have for Jump Festa this year if he actually does slip into 2023 with Hero Academia. There's just no way. We're almost halfway into the year. There's no way. There's no way this is wrapping up in 20 chapters. Especially counting the breaks, no way. So we'll have to see what exactly he wants to do here. Okay, sorry about that. If you notice any differences in the lighting, it's because I had to step away for a very quick second. I've also forgotten what I was talking about. It was general notes, but whatever, we'll move on. So I actually don't really have many other things to say for general notes. This is one of those chapters where you kind of have to go page by page, just because a lot of little details. This is what I really enjoy in the setup chapters. I feel like I was talking about. I feel like I was gonna make fun of Horikoshi and his setup. Whatever. I'll slip it in. Anyway, page 1, the color page. I just want to talk about this one because I found it really interesting. I didn't think that the flames would have different colors. I guess it's appropriate. It's just kind of an interesting visual. Yeah, I'm just very curious about the whole power. It looks really cool for Shoto though. I do wonder if the orange side of the flame is hotter, but then that would kind of defeat the purpose of cold fire. Yeah, curious. I'm just very curious about it, but it was cool to see the visual. I wonder if the anime will actually do this. It feels like that would be kind of hard just to do consistently in the anime, just because, well, actually, I don't know. It's not that different from an asymmetric design. I wonder how they're going to do it. Also, I'm noticing the My Hero Academia has a gradient on it from cool blue to hot red. Okay, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. Alright, we go into page 3 on the Viz Media or Shonen Jump Plus copy. That first page, what's really valuable? Well, you get to see Shoto, you get to see Dobby, and then you get to see Burnin. Burnin's alive, so that's pretty great. I like Burnin, so this is good for me. Trajectory guy who got a face reveal, he looks like he's about to get up, so he looks like he's pretty alright too. Dobby is down. Now, one of the interesting things about this whole thing is that, okay, actually, this is going to be a big one. This is going to be a very big point. This chapter spends a lot of time celebrating the fact that Dobby goes down. And it's I'm not sure Dobby was that important, because you still have a high end in the area. But what makes it odder is that Dobby goes down, and you see so many reactions, but you don't see reactions from the Todoroki family, not even them guessing at what could happen if Dobby goes down, right? It's just odd, and given that the Endeavor household is a household that is always talked about, and always when Endeavor's having a problem, the whole family is getting involved. You know, you have such a very intimate thing here with Dobby, and you don't see them talking. You know, couple that with that weird light that shows up on Dobby's chest at the end, it just makes it seem like the Dobby storyline isn't over, just because you need to get final word from Rei on this whole situation, because she admits that she messed Dobby up too, right? So far, we've only really talked about Shoto and Endeavor. So, I still feel there's some narrative stuff that's missing, and I would love to see this answered in the future. Right now, you know, last week I was saying that we were probably going to get Rei and the family here, but if Dobby's going to continue getting more story, then it makes sense that that would be shoved off later. The big question here, though, is are we going to get anything meaningful from the rest of the Todoroki family, who made such a big deal about the whole Dobby situation? Alright, we move into page 4. Now, what I find most interesting on page 4 is that the heroes are winning. I loved seeing the whole thing of them saying, like, only the Nomu is standing, and you know what was really interesting is the heroes saying that they have the advantage in numbers. I never thought the heroes would be in a situation where they would actually say they had an advantage in numbers. But honestly, when you look at this stuff, they are doing a really good job. Actually, it looks like separating the creatures and the villains away actually was a good idea. You know, it's just like, given like the last war and the body count for that one, I really was expecting worse for them. But this is pretty good. Also, I feel like this girl was there during Overhaul, but whatever. Ultimately, page 4 was just well warranted. Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It showed that the heroes were really putting in a lot of work. And again, seeing this giant mass of people that they've restrained, and also like other support heroes giving medical aid to their comrades and their allies, it was pretty good stuff. Now, page 5 is, I think, one of the silliest pages, and like, not great on Horikoshi, I think, just because this kind of stuff needs a little bit more setup. It's like, in one chapter, he introduces some characters, and then, you know, in the same chapter, you see one. And it's like, the thing here is, the Tartarus villains have such a narrative disadvantage because of what happens with Nagant. Now, mind you, you know, people in the comments during the live stream pointed out, I think it was Jason pointed out, the very good fact of, yeah, you know, like, the Tartarus villains aren't great for Izuku. They aren't a challenge for Izuku, but for everyone else, they'll still be a challenge. That is very true. But, you know, the issue that I found here, or like the weakness, not really an issue, it's a weakness. I think it's a weakness of the approach, is that when you have Nagant coming in there, you have Hawk saying that she's the only real threat to Izuku at that point. Narratively, it does set an initial emotional response to that you then have to go and think like, okay, you know, that was only for Izuku, technically for everyone else. You know, you have to play the game of like correcting that initial assumption about the Tartarus villains. But then you also have like Izuku's you have the fact that Izuku just made a lot of them look like jokes, because Izuku just kind of went through them really quickly. He took out that one monster without even getting a name for him, but we knew it was a Tartarus villain. You also then saw Bakugo just one-shot Dictator right in the head, although you could say, well, Dictator, he doesn't really look like he's a physical threat, so makes sense that a random kid jumping out of the sky will be able to just one-shot him by hitting him on the head. So it's just the Tartarus villains themselves have just... they've been made into such giant jokes that it's unfortunate. And in this case of this chapter, you know, there's nothing impressive about bringing up some names and then just showing us one of the characters later on. That's, anyone can bring up something in a chapter and kill it off in a few chapters. We saw that with Star and Stripe. There was nothing impressive with Star and Stripe's role in the story. She was quite literally a plot device, because that's all. She just came in to do something, to make us change in Shigaraki and then move on with her. Well, she just moved on. She went to another world. Anyway, the approach on this is interesting. Narratively, what it really does is that it gives people something to do. And, you know, in a way, this is also very interesting, because giving people something to do, I really didn't think that Horikoshi would keep doing this, because he was at the end here. I thought he was just going to focus on the most important people. But this is pretty much adding to that chapter count, which makes it impossible to be done in 20 or so chapters for Hero Academia. These are more characters that need to be answered. So Kuniera needs to be answered, probably going to get a chapter, and Gashly needs to be answered, probably going to get a chapter as well. I wonder if it's a Dreadlock guide that we've been seeing a lot. Anyway, these are promises of content for the future, which is appreciated, But yeah, in terms of like how you could have done this better, it's really to name drop these people earlier. You name drop them early, and then when a studious reader gets to see them in the chapter, it's a much better effect. Now, of the silhouettes, we know what Kuniera looks like. I'm gonna guess that Gashly, if it's not Dreadlock's guy, it's the guy with the umbrella, so that might be very interesting. Alright, then we have on the bottom half, All Might really crying for Todoroki. That's alright. And then they speak about how this is going to be a good omen. Well, plan B exists, and it's all for one. There must be something going to go wrong soon, so let's keep an eye out for that. Like, Hawks needs to have his big hopeful moment, and until we get that, hard to say this is all going to go well. We move into page 6, which was one of the biggest surprises here. We get to see Gigantomachia's containment facility. This is actually the second time we've seen this facility, and this is one of those moments where I'm thinking like, wow, that's amazing. I really didn't think we were going to get that. We have the slime villain showing up here. We have Mina getting, I think, some really good shots in this spot overall. I am ultimately very excited. Now, I gotta say, I do think Gigantomachia is going to come back. Not just because we've seen the detainment facility, but because Mina and Kirishima are there. I feel like there needs to be some kind of talk regarding Machia when you have those two characters in the area. These three characters just narratively tied, and we just need a conclusion for that. Now, the big question here, like White Despair would always ask me, do you think Gigantomachia is going to be at the final fight again? I do think it's very possible that if there is a final stand, heroes versus villain, like in the last 10 chapters, I feel like Machia could show up there. But at this moment in time, like right now, I just need Kirishima and Mina to acknowledge Machia. That's all I really need. But if we're going to assume that things are going to get worse, then Machia is able to get out of there. These guys came here. We know that Machia listens to voice-recorded instructions. So if they have one instruction, and given that All for One was around so he can record new lines, they can probably get Machia out of there. Now, what I would be looking forward to, or what I would be looking at when it comes to the whole Mina situation here, I'm going to be looking toward any kind of villain that's sneaky. Like a sneaky villain, if they get past the group, they'll be able to wake up Machia with some instruction, unless Machia's like heavily dosed. And he should be heavily dosed, because it'd be kind of stupid to not have him be heavily dosed. Anyway, this is going to be one of the critical fights, and you got to really hope that if we're getting a smooth ride here, we got to hope that the heroes are able to keep Machia under control. We go into page 7, which is a super interesting page, and it's also a super forced page because of the stuff that happens with Midnight's killer. So, let's just ignore his rhetoric, because he's a fanatic. That's the way he talks is the talk of a cultist fanatic, so it doesn't really matter here. What kind of matters is that in the same line where you have the giant sound of a crash, him talking about killing a UA school teacher. Also, props to him for knowing it was a UA school teacher specifically. And Mina overhearing that. Very silly, very forced, very contrived. Pretty much that's a big setup for Mina. So we're probably going to get something really good there. Probably half a chapter worth of content, or maybe one full chapter worth of content. Fingers crossed. Now, I do see something here that this guy is holding, and I do kind of wonder why he's holding it. FGI. I'm not really sure what that is. And now, like, I really can't make sense of it. Is it a phone? It's not the Paranormal Liberation Front. Yeah, I don't know what FGI is. Alright, if I'm missing something, someone let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, page 8, you have Kirishima saying that the escort mission was done. I do wonder what that was supposed to mean. Is that like referring to Aoyama? I have to like look back to see if Kirishima was there when everyone teleported in. But something's been escorted out of there. So let's keep that line in mind. I can't recall what that might be right now. It could be just moving civilians out of the area. Keep that mind in line. Regardless, you have Kirishima, you have Mina there. This looks pretty good. I can't wait to see what's gonna happen here. These are the characters that always get slotted together. I'm not sure if you guys have noticed Horikoshi's tricks by now, but Mina and Kirishima are our unit, and Gigantomachia is the other part of that unit in terms of their opposition. So I'm very excited to see what's gonna happen here. I also just realized that you have red and pink. Like, I didn't realize they were connected by their hero names too. Didn't really see the connection there, but good to see it here. We move then into a quick shot at the arena where the kids had their provisional license exam. The most concerning thing here, of course, is the fact that Sero isn't saying something. What does that mean? We've been told that Sero is going to get a moment, so fingers crossed, we might see something really cool there. We see the UA main building, and we see that it's over the ocean. Interesting, nice. So I can't wait to see where exactly they're flying Shigaraki to. But we see the Bakugo still around, so that's good. If you zoom into the thing here, you can see that the Shigaraki hand monster is really taking out the main area, but he's still not out of there. Okay, page 10, we go into, I think, one of my favorite runs for the chapter, just because I found Kuniera interesting with the rhetoric, and there's a lot of things you can kind of point out here. So first, let's just study page 10. Most valuable thing on page 10, the flowers. I don't recognize the flowers. They're not red spider lilies, because I don't think red spider lilies form those kind of petals. I will Google it, because this is something that can easily be verified. Yeah, no, those are definitely not red spider lilies. They don't have those kind of petals. Though they have, like, the stems kind of look like it. Anyway, we also see that Fat Gum is having these flowers grow out of him. So, like, the first thing to think is that the flowers have some kind of debilitating effect, because that's usually the parasitic flowers. That's typically what they do. They might be draining his energy, which will be really interesting for Fat Gum, because he's the kind of person that he has an accumulation type quirk. So we might see skinny Fat Gum once more because of the drainage. Anyway, the rest of page 10 is pretty much Kuniera's introduction, and we get some pretty cool stuff here. We see that Kuniera is analytical, and then we see like their general outlook on life, calling trust and hope an oppressive membrane. So that's a little bit ridiculous. You know, when someone can't trust anyone, that's already like, all right, guy, okay. I can see how this kind of works for you. You have a pretty pessimistic point of view. I love Fat Gum's retort of, yeah, you're some kind of alien, huh? Now, the other thing that's really valuable here is that Kuniera seems to be relatively aware of All for One's nature, pointing out that people have not really survived All for One when they have tried to deceive him, and then exceptions will not be tolerated. It just kind of makes it feel like this guy's really devoted to All for One, and seems to have a history. So this is probably one of the most interesting aspects of this whole thing, and it's nice to know that they're just... It's nice to know that this guy is just like severely addicted to All for One. I like him saying that he gets to demonstrate how useful he can be for All for One. Also worth pointing out that he talked about empirical utility. So this is just a guy that wants to be useful to All for One. Like, he values usefulness, which might paint a little bit of his perspective when it comes to Aoyama, right? It's nice that he talked about Dictator's failure. He never got a turn. Like, I don't really understand here. If you were never going to get a turn even if Dictator succeeded. Like, the only way you get a turn to be All for One's assassin is for Dictator to fail. But, you know, like when he says because of Dictator's failure, he means a very specific kind of failure. He means because Dictator failed at keeping Izuku out of UA. But it's like, how does that even work? The line is really nonsensical. Now that I'm thinking about it, because of Dictator's failure, my turn never came around. No, your turn was never going to come around unless he succeeded, because we knew what All for One was doing, and this guy actually kind of confirms it. All for One only sent people out one at a time, right? Fundamentally, by the nature of one of a time, this guy was never going to get a shot if he succeeded. All right. It's not Dictator's failure. It's All for One's failure. Because of All for One's failure at keeping Izuku out of UA, his turn never came around. That's how that should read. Because this line doesn't make sense because of the nature of how we know All for One's plans things. But you know, when you say like he's a fanatic, then you can kind of justify, because he'll never blame All for One. This guy doesn't have a real... He doesn't believe in trust. So he doesn't have like a really great critical faculty. He probably doesn't trust himself, in all honesty. Anyway, my favorite part here was... where they say that they're pretty mad at Aoyama actually being able to like to lie to their Lord and Savior, and they call him the Bat of Aesop. So I like that, because that I never knew about that fable. I went in and I searched. So unfortunately, Viz didn't explain it, whereas the fan translations did. But pretty much the Bat of Aesop is a situation where the animals of the earth and the animals of the sky fought, and the bat just kind of hung around in the sky looking at the situation, and then they just went with whoever won. So when the beasts of the land won, the bat just kind of pretended to be a beast of the land and teamed up with them. So that, you know, it's just pretty much you only pick a side after they win. Actually, it's very strategic to do that. I know, like, he paints it in a really bad light, paints it as though Aoyama is a terrible person. But here's where the problems really come in with Kuniera, and this is compounded with the idea that the Tartarus villains are just pretty lame, is that fundamentally, because as a reader you know this guy is wrong, this isn't a situation of Aoyama playing both sides. This is actually a situation of Aoyama being a kid that was blackmailed, wanting to get away from an actual insane person. There's no practicality here of being smart and playing both sides and joining up with whoever's at the end there. No, this was just a guy wanting to do better. So this is like the big issue right there. Kuniera's stupid. Kuniera's worldview is fundamentally false. There's no room here to say that Aoyama is the bad of Aesop. It just doesn't work because the narrative is against it 100%. Like, you don't do what Aoyama did and you're still playing sides. Nah, man. He wanted to be a hero. Like, we went through that whole chapter of him just talking about wanting to be someone better. Then we go into page 12 where we have President Mike near Central Hospital, and we see Shoji and Koda, and we see Spinner super buffed up, super roided, freaking out. He can't believe that Dobby's gone down. Okay, so in this chapter, this page, I'm so happy because here we are. Shoji is in front of Spinner, just like we thought it would happen. It was going to be the Shoji plotline, and it was going to be Spinner as his counterpoint. And we're actually here. This is so on the nose. And also, it's not lost on me that it's Shoji and also Koda, the other super mutant type guy in the classroom. If you had Tokoyami here, it would have really been perfect. Just have all the mutants against all the mutants. Really on the nose. You know what they're going to be doing here. Horikoshi is going to be coming up with a lot of little things to try and justify this whole mutant-shaped plot line. I don't know if it's going to work. It's going to be extremely contrived. I can't wait for the moment that Shoji talks about his flashbacks. He's going to flashback to talking to that giant dolphin girl. I don't know what she is, but you know who it is. It's the nice girl that's hanging out at UA. He's going to flashback to her. He's going to talk about, oh yeah, you know, we suffered, but we got to show everyone that we're still good people. You know what? Given how Todoroki was treated, Shoji might recall the stuff that Pony said to him, might think back to his fight with Pony, and then he might think about, oh yeah, I always scare kids, that's why I wear a mask. You know, it's just, the author has just been so consistent in telling everyone that Shoji's doing his best and never showing it. He says it in the interviews. You know 100% when this comes around, this guy is going to come in with a brick and hit the reader over the head with it. Because he cannot let this just be a subtle storyline, because subtlety is pretty much like, if something's subtle, it pretty much means it's not happening in the manga. Alright, whatever. The whole Shoji situation, it's going to come in hard and fast because, like, this plotline has been horribly executed, and he's going to have to do all kinds of things to make it look like this was something that was in the works for a very long time. Or at the the thing is, unfortunately, is that it was in the works for a very long time. Because he keeps talking about it in the interviews, but he never shows it. So, point is, Shoji's going to have a lot of flashbacks to justify his position against Spinner, and we're going to see how that goes. I can't wait. Now, page 13, I do think there's a little bit of a mistake on page 13. The mistake is that this is white borders, because this is pretty clearly a flashback. Also, Spinner, I'm sorry that All For One touched you that way. I don't understand why he would touch your face like that. It's almost like how a lover would touch you, but like, I feel more concerned for you because I think he did more to you. Anyway, I think that would have been... it would have had the black gradient going into the white for the borders, so that might have just been something that was missed. Point is, you have Spinner talking about how everyone else has a reason to goal, and he doesn't really have anything, so he's just got to do his best with what he's got. One thing that's endearing is that he ultimately believes in Dobby, even though Dobby, it's not like he has a reason to live on. He has a reason to live and then die. He has a reason to die. Like, he has a very specific way of dying that he wants to hit, and that's what he's living for. So, talking about Spinner here as well, I feel like Spinner might have Gigantomachia's quirk, the one that makes him bigger, because All For One probably has copies of that quirk hanging around or something, and he gave it to Spinner. I do think that Spinner having all those blades, I do wonder where they got all those blades in post-apocalyptic Japan. I hope that, you know, I hope we see a sequence where some of his little lackeys jump on him and grab a sword out of his collection of swords to use. Kind of a waste to not give them to your people. Anyway, can't wait to see Shoji beat this guy down. Shoji already doesn't care about Spinner, and I'll show you the proof on page 14. So, page 14 establishes they're going to get Kurogiri. I'm very excited about that. This is another issue where you really have to hope they don't get Kurogiri, but it's Central Hospital. I feel that anywhere that can revive a dead man, and anywhere that can reconstruct people's bodies as well as Central Hospital can, they must have death lasers. The people that know how to heal you must know how to kill you. So I really hope to see some really like borderline war crime level technology being employed at Central Hospital. I know that might be a little bit aggressive, but I mean, if they take Kurogiri, this is how you get to a final lineup of people. If you want like a really good back and forth fight, honestly, you really do want them to take Kurogiri and Gigantomachia. Like, if you really want to make things look really, really dark before the dawn, you take back those two characters, and if you take back Kurogiri, you can then have a little thing with Kurogiri very quickly returning as Shirakumo and having a moment where he helps everyone, right? Would be an easy way to do it. Heck, you know, bonus points if you have a situation where Kurogiri actually defies All for One in order to protect Shigaraki. That would also be extremely amazing, and that would be a very good way to end off Shirakumo's whole story. We'll have to see. Because the easiest thing to do here is to just make Spinner into a joke. Mind you, Spinner also has a trigger button. So we don't know what that button does. It's probably bombs all over Japan. So that might be something he uses later on. Anyway, as you have Spinner talking about they're going to demolish the system that oppressed them, Shoji's on the other side. Like, he's staring down this giant crowd of people and he's thinking, yo, Shoto, I'm so proud I made it into your class. This guy has nerves of steel. He doesn't care at all about Spinner and Spinner's plight. He's just thinking, man, what a cool guy. I'm going to be just like him. Right? So this is kind of summing up like how people feel about Spinner in the manga there. I feel really bad for him. I can't wait to see how this is going to go down. Shoji being there is no coincidence. Like, Shoji and Spinner were going to be the ones dealing with the mutant-shaped plotline. So here we are. Can't wait to see the flashbacks. It's going to be very heavy-handed. There's no way around it. This has to be super heavy-handed. He's not going to... You know what would be really funny? If he off-screens it and then says that Shoji did his best in a post-series interview. Page 15, we return to Shoto and Ida. It's kind of cool seeing Ida like in that mask. And it's nice to see Shoto apologizing about stalling Ida's engines. I think you can see that the other Endeavor sidekick is also fine there. Someone's asking how Dobby's alive in that state, and then we see zoom-ins on Dobby's chest. So first I want to say I'm pretty sure Dobby's frozen. I don't think that's healing. I think that's frozen material. This is again one of those spots where you really need the anime's coloring to really understand what's going on with Dobby. But for now, I'm going to assume it's frozen. And then this is the critical page. Page 16, we see a light forming on Dobby's chest, and then it says Voom. So, Voom is usually the sound effect for something energetic, something, you know, magical, mystical, electric maybe. I don't know what this could be. I know White Despair is thinking that this is the manifestation of Search being used, but I don't think it would actually have a sound effect attached to it, because that doesn't make sense. I think something's activated inside of Dobby. You know, I would love it if All for One blew him up just to shake morale. I would love it if this is some other power. Because at the end of the day, Dobby has raised genetics. He should be able to withstand ice better than people expect. So this might awaken something in him. If I was to give my votes, you know, I'm mostly on the line of this is something All for One implanted in him. After that, I would think this is his power awakening. After that, I would think, yeah, I guess like I mentioned this on live stream, but like 10% shot, it's just Search. Anyway, we go to the Gunga Mountain Villa ruins. I just want to say this monster that's here, I don't know what that is, but I really hope Ryukyu's around to counter it. Anyway, you have Endeavor finding out, you have All for One playing mind games, and they're still talking about him giving Shoto this choice when we know this is a beaten horse. Like, come on, we know that Shoto did this on his own. Whatever. Ultimately, it looks like we're going to do Hawks and Endeavor versus All for One, which is a legendary tag team. This is, I can definitely see how this could be Hawks' big moment if he gets to get a critical hit on All For One when Endeavor needs it the most. What other things can I say here? Yeah, not really too much. When we look at not Endeavor, when we look at All For One, it looks like the next thing that we're gonna see is All For One versus Endeavor. And in terms of the quirks that we're seeing here, you know, All For One is just a giant show off. But I do want to talk about this little face right here. All For One, I'm pretty sure All For One got so beaten up by All Might that he can no longer remember what his face looked like. Imagine that. This guy, even when he's making more of himself, he's making them without a face. When he's inside of Shigaraki's vestige world, when he's a ghost, he still can't imagine his face. I feel really bad for him. All Might beat him so... I hope that when him and All Might have a moment to talk, he tells All Might, I hate you so much because you made me forget what I looked like. That would just be hilarious, and that'd be appropriate for All For One's who he is. Now I do have a question, because All For One's doing something that's very similar to what Shigaraki's doing. Like, you know, instead of Shigaraki's hand fetish, you have All For One's face fetish here. If All For One can... Is the way he's producing this thing out of his hand, his finger, is that similar to what Shigaraki's doing? Like, I'm just so confused. Why would you put that power in there? I can't wait to see what exactly that quirk is, because it looks pretty freaky if you ask me. And of course, we also see his favorite spines or whatever, drills, like whatever. All For One's such a basic guy. Like, we all know he's super basic. He only likes simple things. I can't wait to see Endeavor, like, actually burn this guy to a crisp. I think Endeavor's going to get a few good shots in there. Yeah, no, man, like, honestly, All For One should just take Endeavor's quirk as easily as he did during Vigilantes. Like, when he was taking other people's quirks during Vigilantes. Should just do it. That would be the best way to go about doing this. Like, just take away the quirks of the people fighting you. I don't understand what's so difficult about that. Anyway, guys, what I think is going to happen next, I don't know. You know, this is one of those chapters where I really hope we get a good follow through, man. I'm really excited. I hope we get Endeavor versus All For One next week, but we'll have to see. And I have nothing else I really want to say. I feel like I was going to have more end notes, but I think I might have talked about everything here. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought down below. Let me know if I forgot anything. And till next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day. I got to go to a meeting.